And yes, so for the final chat out here on this track, which is on leadership in the era of data, AI, and automation anywhere, allow me to please welcome our conversationalist, Vikas Prasad, Director, Service Line Sales, India, South Asia, Kyndryl, who will be in conversation with Venkatesh Natarajan, the President, IT, and Chief Digital Officer, Ashok Leland. With that, it's over to you two gentlemen out there.
Welcome to the Economic Times Global Digital League. I'm going to talk about the leadership in the era of data, AI, and automation everywhere. Right? As organizations compete in the era of Industry 4.0, there is a struggle that they have to protect their market share from the new entrants. At the same time, attempting to expand their revenues for themselves. Right? This multi-front battle is taxing the existing resources and processes, and at the same time also calling for new ways of working. The industries are exploring how to make much sense of the data available to them from their IT systems, at the same time to make quality business decisions in a much agile manner and at speed. Right? Now, bringing all of this to context for the auto industry, though this industry was impacted by most impacted by the pandemic, and I would say still grappling with to get back in shape, it has made tremendous advances in the process automation and the data automation side. But the next big question in front of all of us is to automate its ecosystem, right? Which basically brings down to the point of leveraging AI for growing business, right? And there is a need to focus attention and resources in this area because it could potentially solve most of the industry's problems, by lowering costs, monetizing opportunities, reducing unsold inventories, and above all, preparing for, domination of in the space of autonomous vehicles, right? We all know about that. In fact, it is a surprising evidence that in the last 5 years, this industry has invested more than $10 billion in AI-led startups, right? And again, across multiple areas of customer experience, driver experience, mobility services, and this investment is highest across all the other areas, right? All the other areas of investments. And now this definitely brings in the much needed funding, but at the same time, talks about solving the most eminent problem, right? Which is addressing the skill gap that this industry is facing. So I'm Vikas Prasad, the director at Kyndryl, and I'm joined with one of the most, recognized industry veteran, Mr. Venkatesh Natarajan, VN as we call him, the Chief Digital Officer and Senior Vice President IT of Ashok Leland. Today we'll hear from him on his views on the way auto industry has evolved and how people are making efforts towards leveraging data and AI to grow their business. Welcome, VN.
Thank you, Vikas. Glad to be here.
So, VN, the question to you here is, critical to the industry's success in capitalizing on the massive amount of data generated to improve the asset utilization, optimize supply chains, reduce the overhead burdens of safety and compliance. What's your take on why extracting and leveraging data and using technologies like AI is fundamentally important to this industry, and especially now?
Because let me get started with what everyone today talks of. People say today data is the new oil. Then people say data is the new currency, right? And today world leaders have started talking about the potential and the power of data. Business tycoons have started talking about the impact of data in the future. Corporate leaders have also started talking about the effect that data is going to have and AI is going to have moving forward. So in the manufacturing industry, and especially the automotive industry, which I represent, if I have to really break up the data landscape, I would classify them into 4 distinct segments or categories. The first thing is your ERP data, your CRM data, and most of the people really talk of only this data. And in a manufacturing industry, this probably, if you compare this to the Pacific Ocean, and Pacific Ocean is quite big. In an automotive industry, I'm sure you will agree that the engineering data and the engineering landscape is also a very, very vast landscape. Your CAD systems, your CAE systems, your testing systems, your PLM platforms, all this put together is also fairly big in an automotive industry. So if you were to compare and then say this engineering IT platforms are like the Atlantic Ocean. Atlantic Ocean is smaller than the Pacific Ocean, but not very small. That's also fairly big. Now today then the third category is because of these digital platforms. Then companies which have gone very aggressively on building digital platform seem to be capturing a lot of data through these platforms. It could be a connected vehicle platform, it could be your digital commerce platforms and so on. So that is the third platform which is also gaining in size and in prominence. And if you compare that to the Indian Ocean is smaller, but still it is an ocean. That is the third category. And the fourth category in the manufacturing industry is the data which is there, the OT data that is there on the shop floor. Now, this has been something I suddenly realized that we seem to be so much focused on your ERPs and digital platforms and so on, that we really realize that there's so much of data there on the shop floor. Today, machines are smart machines there. Today, machines send out a lot of data. They capture a lot of data. They give a lot of data. Even it is machines, equipments, tools. Even tools like torque wrenches are smart tools now. Torque wrenches also have sensors where you can track, they give out the amount of torque which has been applied. So we suddenly realize that so much of data is available, but it is not being discovered. So this is like in a manufacturing industry, this is like the Antarctic Ocean. The Antarctic Ocean is the least traveled and the least explored. And there is a huge opportunity for mapping the ocean floor and then discovering what data you have and then figure out what you can do really with that data. So there is a huge kind of an exponential burst in the volume of data in the manufacturing industry also. So if I were to finally categorize the data into, again, 3 stages. One is your transaction data. The second, and that's what when IT really got started off with, it was more your payroll, your ERP data, and so on. And then we started getting into how do we use this data. So there was a lot of focus on data analytics and insights, and now today AI-powered analytics and so on. So that is the second category, I would say. The third category, which is being enabled by data, is new business models now. And the automotive industry is in the cusp of some very major mega trends like connected, autonomous, shared, and electric. And data moving forward has already started playing a very, very major role in shaping the future. And moving forward, data is going to play a differentiating role. So moving forward, we find that probably a vehicle, it will be more and more commoditized. So what will be the differentiating layer? The differentiating layer will come from the data and analytics layer. So customers would want to know what is it that you're going to provide with the data and with the data you capture, and how are you going to apply the new age technologies like AI to provide them exponential value. So moving forward, data is the game changer.
Absolutely, well said. And I'm a huge fan of your analogies, and I love that ocean example. I'm sure there are many more to come as we move forward into this discussion. So my next question here is, why do you think, and again, leading on to the previous where you left, right? The AI part. Why do you think manufacturing organizations should leverage AI-powered automation to compete in the industry 4.0, right? Talk to us about some use cases here. I'm sure the avid learner that you are, and all admirations to you for successfully completing the AI for Leaders course. And I'm sure this gives you an edge to lead the way forward in this space. Viyan.
Oh, absolutely, because so if you talk of in the last 10-15 years, I truly believe that the clock speed of the world has changed significantly. And hence, the clock speed of businesses and the clock speed of the society itself has changed because of technology. Now, organizations and businesses are required to run much faster today than what was it earlier. If you have to run faster, you have to be lean. So today we are in a scenario where it is not the big eating the small. It is the fast which is eating the slow. So you will have to run fast. If you have to run fast, you will have to be lean, you will have to be agile. Now, agility, most of the people think agility is all about running fast. But agility is not only running fast, but also your ability to change directions very quickly. And here the analogy is, if you take cheetah, and if you go to the Serengeti plains in Africa, cheetah is the fastest land animal. And when it is chasing a prey, and it's one of the most dangerous predators, when it is chasing its prey, and it could be a Thompson gazelle, right? If you really see those Discovery Channel documentaries and National Geography documentaries, it can pick up 100 kilometers per hour speed within a few seconds. But it's just not the speed. If you really closely look at it, many of the times it is not successful. But the times it is successful, it was successful because it was able to change direction. The Thompson gazelle is also very, very agile, very, very flexible. It keeps jumping this side, changing direction. But the cheetah, it does not, it changes direction without losing speed. And that is what is a killer kind of trait in the cheetah. Organizations today need to have the cheetah instinct. They need to be running fast and also changing direction also today. So it's very important for organizations to be looking at automation, and especially in today's AI world, it is hyper automation. And most of the organizations, I think, have embarked on this journey of putting all those processes, and especially manufacturing industry, onto the treadmill, and then make the processes sweat there. The moment you get onto the treadmill and you go on a 1 month regime or so, you want to reduce weight. After 1 month, you suddenly realize the primary benefit what you get out of running on a treadmill for 1 month is that you can walk faster, you can run faster, you can walk faster, you can climb staircases that much more easily without gasping for breath. That is the primary benefit what you get. The next benefit is, if you are 40 plus, your cholesterol levels will come under control, your sugar levels will come under control, your stress levels will be under control. That is the second line of benefit you get. And the third line of benefit, which is more an offshoot, is there will be a reduction in your medical bills. This same analogy applies to organization. When you put processes onto the treadmill and then make it run, you will have to make them lean. You cut off all those unwanted processes, those processes which are very, very bureaucratic, those steps and activities. You knock off fat, obesity in the process. At the end of it, you will start running faster. You can change directions very, very quickly. And the offshoot of that will be a reduction in the cost. Definitely, when your processes become lean, you need less people also. Your headcount will also come down. So there will be definitely a positive impact on your overall cost. Some of the use cases using, when you talk of process automation, the first thing is AI enabled, and I talk of AI as an umbrella technology. And one of the things here is where we have deployed robotic process automation for invoice processing, where we receive thousands of invoices every day, which used to go through the manual route earlier, which is all handled through the RPA today. There is a bot which reads all the digitally signed invoices sent by the suppliers, and it is automatically processed. Huge kind of benefit in terms of reduction, not only reduction of headcount, but in terms of the time that is taken to process an invoice and make a payment to the vendor. That is one use case of an RPA, which is kind of an AI tool. The second is on a computer vision technology, where we felt that, our vision was that every component that comes out of the manufacturing line or the machining line, or it could be an engine or a vehicle, it has to be defect free, right? There are certain, you have a quality assurance process, but there could be cases where the quality assurance engineer will miss out seeing some defect on the component, right? When it is being machined or when it is received from the supplier. And this is where we have very, very effectively deployed the computer vision technology to detect, to take a camera shot of the component when, for example, a sealant is being applied on a timing gap, and then automatically sense whether the sealant has been applied properly or not, which otherwise sometimes they used to miss out. and then the system will automatically say whether this component can be accepted or not. These kind of things, several use cases of this. I just gave you an example of this where we have used computer vision, which is a kind of an AI-powered kind of a technology. So there are several ways we are looking at all. Overall, if you look at, we have an AI framework, we call that as a Hubble.ai, which is predict at AL, insights at AL, predict at AL, recommendations at AL. When I say AL, it is Ashok Leyland. And then computer vision at AL, video analytics at AL, RPA at AL, robotics at AL, and NLP at AL. We have got projects which we have deployed across all these several components of AI. And it is yielding us tremendous kind of benefits, both in terms of productivity improvements, cost reduction, and the acceleration, which we were talking of, so that you're able to run much faster. So in the future, it's going to be, when you talk of headcount, it's just not going to be the number of white-collared people or blue-collared people. It's going to be white-collared plus blue-collared plus the number of bots you have in the organization, all put together will be your headcount.
Absolutely, that's very well articulated. I mean, yeah, use cases are multiple, as you said. Artificial intelligence is not only changing the cars on the road, but also the factories. You gave a few examples there, right? We also heard of how the automotive manufacturers are collaborating with the insurance industries, right, to help them make better decisions. Again, using digital transformation. You talked about a bot in RPA. There are collaborative bots for industrial automation, right? Just to in factories wherein it is hazardous for human beings to work. There are many use cases here in this area. So the next question here is, never before has the data and the digital infrastructure held such a relevance for the financial bottom line of companies. Enterprise digital transformation elevated data as a primary asset, requiring protection against loss, theft, damage. At the same time, external cyber security threats increase the risk of losing control, right, of business critical data. What's your perspective on data resilience?
Because if you really go back to the drivers today for this, right, what is changing in the organization, right? When it comes to data resilience, compared to what it was about 10 years ago. Now, businesses have become heavily dependent on not only IT, but even the digital platforms also today, right? And they seem to be wanting more and more of solutions and applications to be developed at breakneck speed. So the concept of MVP has really kicked in, minimal viable product, the agile methodology of developing applications, and so on. And the demand only seems to be going up, and I guess moving forward, it's going to further kind of gain a lot of traction as we move forward. And it's not only the demand for more and more applications to be developed and more of data to be captured. And here, when I talk of data, it's time I think we get into a data landscape. I call it as a 3.0, because you have technologies like AI, which can even kind of process text data, video data, audio data. We will have to go back to the processes and then see what else can we really capture and then analyze, which can provide businesses very, very deep insights for whatever actions or decision making and so on. The second is these applications are all become very, very critical, mission critical today. So it's very important that these data has to be organized in such a way that they are all available, and the infrastructure which host the data and the applications are all available on a 24/7. So here I introduce this concept of, I say data today has to be in a combat ready mode today. When I say data has to be ready in a combat ready mode, it has to be organized in such a way that you are able to pull out data and then build applications at breakneck speed. This is something like probably an Air Force, right? So whenever you have an intruder aircraft in the Indian airspace, the Air Force is supposed to be scrambling off a jet the moment they get this information within so many minutes, and that must be an SLA. And within so many minutes, the aircraft, the fighter jet has to take off from any of those Air Force stations in India, has to go and then intercept the intruder aircraft, and then ascertain whether it's a friendly aircraft, by mistake it has entered the Indian airspace, or do whatever and take action and then force it to land in the nearest airspace. All this is all done within a few minutes. So you can imagine the kind of infrastructure, people, process, and technology that is there behind to be supporting this kind of a mission. Similarly, when businesses demand for this kind of a data, these applications to be developed, and there is this additional component of data to be secured also today, especially during the COVID period where the cybersecurity risks have only now quadrupled now. So keeping all this into the way you keep your IT infrastructure and the resilience of that becomes very, very, very critical, right? How do you ensure that you're able to capture data, store data, secure the data, and ultimately make it available to the business without kind of a downtime, without any disruption? So your IT infrastructure, which probably constitutes your data center and your end user equipment also support, all this becomes very, very critical. And in our case, I would say, well, we have IBM who has been managing our infrastructure, which all includes data center and the end user compute equipment for the past 5 years, given the complexity of our landscape. And more importantly, in the last couple of years, IBM has also now started managing our security operations center now, constantly 24/7, having an eagle's eye on what's happening on our IT infrastructure. So having a partner and a capable partner and a reliable partner in ensuring this kind of a service to your end users also becomes a very, very critical component in you being able to meet the expectations of the organization and the management.
Absolutely, and yes, thanks for that. I mean, you have always motivated and pushed us to be in a combat ready mode, as you explained some time back, right? And that's how we work with Ashok Leyland very closely. One of the things here is, apart from the data being instrumental to run your business and therefore it is critical, any downtime also poses a reputational risk, right, these days, which is also a very important aspect which cannot be ignored, right? So that's how important it is. So Vian, coming to the last question for the day, here in the automotive industry, the implementation of AI is at a lower rate, right, as compared to the rest of the industry. If I take financial sector for that matter, or ICT or retail, right, healthcare for that matter. In terms of AI adoption and implementation, the automotive industry can be categorized as new adopters, right? But having said that, Ashok Leyland seems to be leading the way, for the others. So can you talk about the various digital initiatives that you have adopted and led from the front at AL, right? And also if you can share some use cases other than the two that you already mentioned.
Today in Ashok Leyland, apart from just developing technology, we don't do digital for digital's sake unless there are very clear, defined business outcomes. So when we invest our effort on this, it becomes absolutely necessary for us to ensure that the efforts, the investment that we have made really yields the desired result. So adoption and driving adoption becomes a very, very primary focus area. And I keep telling our IT guys, just developing and then deploying a solution does not end. You have to ensure that it is being properly used, and you have to measure the usage and measure the benefits out of this. This is like saying the sales guy's job is not completed just by getting the invoice or whatever, clinching the deal with the customer. But his job is over only when he's able to get the money based on the invoice into his organization's account. So your job is not done till then. So an IT guy's job is not done unless he's able to push adoption and then make people kind of use and then adopt technology. So our primary aim has been, I always say, we are now transforming from thinking digital to doing digital to being digital. That is our objective. And our AI vision has always been that we have to transform from an AI-enabled organization to an AI-led organization. So as part of this, we kicked off an initiative last year called the data-driven organization. If this has to happen, and when you're talking so much of AI deployment, we have to ensure that every facet of our operations, every facet of our business use technology and use data, right? So data literacy and driving data dexterity is one of our major initiatives as part of this data-driven organization. So I just wanted to give you some 4 or 5 examples of what are we trying to do. We truly believe that if you don't get the business involved in this whole journey, it has to be an inclusive approach. So we got some business guys part of our analytics team. We call them as analytic evangelists. For them to identify use cases in their respective areas, we gave them some basic training on the power and potential of AI and then made them develop some models and then deploy them. And they're responsible for deployment, adoption, and also deriving the benefits. In most of the organizations, you find that the leadership team requires a major kind of an awareness in terms of the potential of AI and especially these emerging technologies like AI. So we launched as part of this, the second initiative was the digital leadership program. So this is all part, this is actually sharing, especially with the leadership team, the potential of some of these technologies. And today I'm going to talk about RPA today. At 5 p.m. I have a session with my senior management where we are presenting on what is RPA and what we have done on RPA. This is basically to provide that awareness so that they go back and then they are able to drive their team to identify more and more use cases. So this, we call it as a digital leadership program. We have almost conducted about 15 sessions so far in the last, say, 6 to 7 months for the senior leadership. The third is empowering the users to identify and then drive technology. The time has gone where you hold on to technology yourself within the IT team. The time has come for us to democratize technology today, right? So how do you do that? How do you empower the employees? How do you empower the executives? One of the things we have done is we have now started embedding knowledge, AI knowledge, say with our product development team. We had them go through a session by one of the cloud service providers which we use, right? On how to use the various big data tools which are available on the cloud so that they can start taking the connected vehicle data, the product development guys, and start building models, right? And ultimately, how do you drive AI within the business? The way I look at it is today that, I talk of this Dashavatar of the CIO. He plays multiple roles apart from a CIO. He's the Chief Information Officer, Innovation Officer, Chief Transformation Officer, Chief Process Officer, Chief Data Officer, Chief Information Security Officer. And I say he's the Chief Harassed Officer because he's so much in demand today. People harass you, but you have to take that in the right sense. So ultimately, moving forward, when you start embedding technology as part of this and more of AI gets into the organization, whether the role of the CIO will remain the same, it will remain, but it will not be the Chief Information Officer. It will be the Chief Integration Officer moving forward, where more and more of AI gets embedded within the business itself. And that I see in the next 3 to 5 years will begin to happen.
Absolutely. I mean, and autonomous vehicles, you talked about connected vehicles, which you leading that project yourself. I mean, I'm completely onto that, right? Today, there are multiple.
I truly believe, Vikas, that learning is a continuous process. We all know today, right? So with this course, which I have done on AI for leaders, a wonderful course, I would say, has given me a very, very rounded view for driving AI within the organization. So today I say, I'm not only an AI student, but I'm an AI practitioner, kind of evangelizing solutions, AI solutions, and helping my teams to roll out. And I'm also a teacher of AI also because I speak on AI in some of these programs.
That's great. That's great. And so, Vian, thanks for your time today. And it's always a pleasure talking to you and hearing from you. The ocean examples, the treadmill, which I always use with most of my discussions with many other colleagues. Right. Just to summarize, right, in the last 5 years, if we talk about AI, and especially in the automotive industries, is being deployed. Earlier, it was deployed for many basic use cases like parking assistance, cruise control, some basic autonomous vehicles being rolled out earlier, which has resulted in increased adoption of such technology. I think the next, I would say 10 years or so would be very interesting as AI technology is expected to be part of many automotive applications. And then hence, by the end of this decade, let's say 2030, it's expected that 95% of the new vehicles will have AI technologies, or else, that would not give them an edge, right? And, as we move forward, Kyndryl with its capabilities in the AI ops, automation, data, and security, as we talked about, is well poised to help customers, not only reduce cost, but also transform the client experience across businesses, right? IT and networks, to place them on the path of success, right? And also grow their business in the Industry 4.0 era. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vikas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vikas and Venkatesh, for those closing conversations, so as to say, some lovely insights and newer things to learn. Of course, thank you for sharing your expertise with us. And that reminds me of Victor Hugo, who once said that nothing, absolutely nothing, is more powerful than an idea whose time has come. Well, COVID-19, ladies and gentlemen, if you talk about, had and really did jolt the global manufacturing scene, breeding new changes in the geopolitical scene. And with a technology-focused government at the center, I think it's time for the Indian manufacturing organizations to make up for the lost momentum. Well, I'm sure, hearing the dialogues today right there since morning makes us realize how sometimes you really have to jump out of the window and grow your wings sort of way down, right? So on that note, of course, while we would love it that you are a go-getter on the platform, exploring all the features designed and designated for you to explore, I would once again urge all of you to please fill in the feedback forms, most importantly, at the partner booths out there right now if you haven't done so. And do remember to explore their technology showcases that have been baked with a lot of diligence, concentration, and of course, with all their heart. And of course, you are entitled to win lots of good prizes and goodies out there. Well, of course, make sure that you're availing the chance of open networking and also, your personal meeting rooms that allows you to connect with each other, because the joy of being a human lies in the social connect. So make sure you do so. And, the good fight for the leaderboard points is quite palpable, and in all good, sense, I would say that it must resume, as I invite you all to join us for the other ongoing as well as coming up tracks on Amazon Internet Services Presents, the Economic Times Global Digital League 2.0, co-powered by Kyndryl. Well, the other tracks being, of course, the BFSI, the healthcare, and the GCC. And of course, I would duly invite you for another track that I'll be a part of, but here's for now extending gratitude once again to our presenting partner, Amazon Internet Services. Thank you very much. Well, the summit is co-powered by Kyndryl, our innovation partner being Dell Technologies, our platinum partners being NetApp and Redington, our gold partners being Commvault, Juniper Networks, Exclusive Networks, Fiserv, Checkpoint Software Technologies, our associate partners being Polydatamatics and Jabra. Well, I would also say a big thank you to our supporting association, Commodity Participants Association of India, the Cyber Society of India, and of course, National Accreditation Board for the hospitals. Well, thank you so much to all of you for showing an avid interest up till now right there in the manufacturing track that we have been witnessing along with you all. So thank you for your participation. And I would take a couple of seconds here quickly to read that excitement, on Twitter that I see. So something that I get from Gaurav Midha says, #ETGDL, nice event. Thank you very much. And good to see your picture in the screenshot and the screen grab there as well, Gaurav. And let me just scroll through. YK Agarwal says, #ETGDL, nice and informative webinar. Thank you so much, Mr. Agarwal. Good to know you're enjoying the summit. And Ganesh says, very nice platform. Exactly. So keep exploring that and do share your takeaways also using #ETGDL. Also remember to tag us. That will just help us reshare your post. And with that, I will see you on the Unicorns of India track that starts at 2:25 p.m. So for now, ciao. Thank you.